We have got Kai Havertz wrong. We've misinterpreted him. He is what's called a Raumdeuter, free from any specific position, and this is what makes him such an exciting signing for Arsenal. What do I mean? Well, in today's video, I'm going to extend my scouting report on Kai Havertz that I've already put out on the channel, where I outlined his qualities, where he fits in potentially at Arsenal, what type of a player he is, what he offers to the squad. I also said he will not play as the left-hand-sided 8 for Arteta, and this caused some debate in the comments. I hope to explain in this video, Havertz is something we call a Raumdeuter. What is a Raumdeuter? Again, in today's video, I'll explain the role coined by Thomas Muller, how Havertz fits this role, and he's a player that we should not label with a specific position, and also where this means he will fit positionally in Arteta's system. So let's begin with what is a Raumdeuter. The Raumdeuter is, by definition, a space investigator or interpreter, or as I like to say, space invader. As I said, this is a tactical role that has evolved out of Thomas Muller's unique use in the early 2010s Bayern Munich side, managed by Louis van Gaal, I think. The Raumdeuter is totally unique on the football pitch. They don't take up a specific position. They roam into areas that they see fit all across the final third. So they are multi-positional and are a role rather than constrained to one area or channel of the pitch. These types of players, these Raumdeuters in the modern game, often begin as number 10s, again, roamers by nature. But they didn't necessarily have the qualities to become an out-and-out creator, so they won't dictate or create at will, or be that creative number 8 to help deeper build-up. However, they keep their tremendous footballing brain and ability to recognise space to operate within, where to exploit or take advantage on the pitch, and it's their job to see what others cannot. Like I said, take advantage of space, think ahead of others, do the simple things very, very reliably across the entire final third. I think they best operate in between the lines in those half spaces, those already inherently hard areas for defenders to mark. They also draw defenders out of their own space, create space for others to move into, link play whenever they see the opportunity to, and they roam just in between these gaps, but also behind the line. And this is why you'll see them play across from wide areas, but also operate more centrally. This is as well how they seem that their output seems to be so high, and they'll accumulate goals and assists without you knowing. They're in the right place at the right time. So, they also love to score goals, as I've just mentioned, and create, but they're not an out-and-out number 9. They are an in-between player, hence the Raumdeuter, playing on multiple fronts, a space interpreter, a space invader. This makes them very hard to pick up, but not just for players, but for the watchers as well, the fans. And this links to them as a player. They are the sort of football litmus paper test, if you will, something that the eye test cannot always pick up, so they often go unnoticed. They pride themselves on tying things together with the simplest of actions that require the smartest of brains, and for this reason they are often criticised and scapegoated quickly when their output drops or the team's performance levels drops. For some, they seem too effortless, even languid at times, especially considering their unorthodox builds. But it's because I feel they don't understand the beauty of the simplicity of the Raumdeuter, taking the words out of Johan Cruyff's mouth directly there. And this being missed out on so often gives the Raumdeuter, I think, a humility to accept their role away from the limelight, creating space for others, like I've said, but making themselves as deceptive as possible. A big part of the Raumdeuter is efficiency, whether that's retaining or finding space with the ball, and leaving the more eye-catching qualities to those, again, who were previously maybe number 10s, but are now those specialised attacking midfielders we've spoken so in-depth on the channel about, often operating in the right-hand-sided half space, the Kevin De Bruyne's, Martin Odegaard's, Bruno Fernandes, James Maddison's in the Premier League alone. And I think as well, this also means, away from the limelight, they also have the biggest mental fortitude, the Raumdeuters, and a composure for their less sort of showbiz role. And a big part in how they work, as part of a team, their relentless nature of how they occupy dangerous areas constantly, and their composure in the final action. So, their presence in a team that deploys them is vital, often excelling in a very settled system where they are giving a license to drift into pockets of space off the shoulders of defenders. They do not often have the pressure to force things, but more wait for the ball to come to them. So that's the Raumdeuter. But how is Havertz a Raumdeuter? Well, that's what I'm going to get into now. Hopefully you can attribute many of the qualities I've just stated to Kai Havertz, but I want to start with his origins as a footballer. Of course, he played in his early days at Bayer Leverkusen as a number 10 in a 4-2-3-1 system. He played as that fearless and roaming attacking midfielder under his coach Peter Bosch. And of course, now is the sort of heir to the Raumdeuter throne in German football, in a way replacing Thomas Muller himself in the German national team. His football brain is very, very astute, Kai Havertz. Of course, he's played as that positionally free number 10, and this difficulty to pin him down is an attribute to his game that has been discussed by coaches throughout his career, and an attribute that is the Raumdeuter through and through. For example, Tafen Korkut, a former coach, again at Bayer Leverkusen, described him between a winger and a central player, but also an 8 and a 10. Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea described him almost in the exact terms that I described a Raumdeuter, interestingly. Able to play in the half space, free from a number 9 to create overloads on one side or the other, and time your runs impeccably to arrive late in the box. So Havertz is a Raumdeuter. He's not an out-and-out focal point, or even an out-and-out false 9. He was still at Chelsea required to be the main hitman, and also seemingly the main creator at the same time. I mean, Tuchel understood the Raumdeuter role perfectly, but out of necessity could not free Havertz really from the shackles on a consistent basis from the number 9. But I don't think Frank Lampard and Potter, who obviously inherited Kai Havertz, they didn't buy him, understood this role at all. Lampard's 4-2-3-1 should have the Raumdeuter in the number 10 position. But I think Mason Mount played there, and Havertz couldn't really excel. He was more strictly put as a number 9. And again, Potter only had him in this quite constrictive position on the pitch as well. Havertz is best when he is allowed to vacate and move into space across the front line, the entire final third, solely focusing on playing between the lines and attacking the box deceptively. That's when Havertz is at his best. To take an example of this, Havertz has been criticised for his lack of physicality, but we see him often score many, many headers. Why is this? Well, other than his height, his movement is top-notch. And again, put this alongside his height, you have a real aerial threat, even if he isn't the most complete finisher yet. I feel the main reason Kai Havertz has been criticised and the signing for Arsenal has had some scepticism, especially when it was first announced and people couldn't really get their head around it, is because the eye test, I'll go back to it, misprofiles the Raumdeuter inherently. They see the same lanky, unorthodox, slim build to Thomas Muller, but really Kai Havertz has those really deceptively quick legs, similar to a Mesut Ozil, that provide real fast progression up the pitch. And this theme of misunderstanding the Raumdeuter can be seen throughout football. I think it's one of the reasons why Donny van der Beek has confused so many, including myself, at Manchester United, thinking, is he going to play instead of Bruno in the 8, or maybe McTominay in the pivot, or Fred, is a deeper lying 6? But he's a Raumdeuter again, Donny van der Beek, a deeper lying one maybe. But Ten Hag has never had that settled system to be able to deploy him in. And like I said, the Raumdeuter requires this controlled system behind them. I feel like they're a kind of project topper. That's my opinion. And they take the sides to the next level in their fluid play, and I don't think Ten Hag has had this yet at Manchester United. And interestingly, it's probably why he's kept Van der Beek instead of selling him. And of course, Kai Havertz, we must remember, is only 24 years of age. He has the time to evolve into a sort of Raumdeuter Thomas Muller heir, but maybe in a more modern sense now. As football continues to change, Arteta will be hoping he's buying someone who can also fill out their body in terms of mass, becoming even more reliable in the Raumdeuter's linking of play, running behind the lines, winning duels, and also, I think, importantly, Havertz giving himself a platform to dominate the inside-the-box actions, whether that's the final pass or a strike of the football towards goal. And this leads on to what position or where will he play for or fit under Arteta at Arsenal? Well, like I said, Havertz is multi-positional, so let's not put a specific position, assign him to a specific role, because we just don't know yet. I said in my scouting report for Kai Havertz, that I'll leave a link to in the video, he will play as a centre forward, a shadow striker, a number 10, an advanced 8, and maybe even on the wings at some point. He'll be given that license to roam. And it's vital a coach knows what they're getting in a Raumdeuter, and Arteta, I think, certainly will. That's a massive reason why he's bought Kai Havertz. So it's great to see that Havertz will already have an environment that is tailored to him to doing well. Let's go back to his time at Bayer Leverkusen again. Havertz around him had players like Julian Brandt, Leon Bailey, Karim Bellarabi, Kevin Volland, who were all great movers, dynamic movers with the football. Maybe not to the same extent Kevin Volland, but I think with this Raumdeuter you need a centre point that Volland gave to play around, a balance point. And now if you take that Leverkusen dynamic over to Arsenal, you simply elevate that. You have some of the most fluid, interchangeable, dynamic frontline players in world football. The constant rotations of Jesus, Trossard, Saka, Martinelli, Nelson will create so much space for Havertz to move into. Something that I think next season could be really uncontainable for teams at times. You know, whoever is playing as the central striker for Arsenal, whether it's Jesus, Trossard, Martinelli, Havertz, or any number of those at different points in a game, is not expected to be the main goal scorer. Their roles encourage Martinelli and Saka to drift from wide areas, from the wings, to more central areas and score heap loads of goals. And this is Arteta's dynamics in the 3-2-5 system in settled play. You know, Arteta has his own ideas, and that is part of the reason why he'll have such a top managerial career, and already has done. You have to both follow trends in football management, in modern football, but also not stand still and be an innovator yourself. For example, Kai Havertz is not being brought in to dominate the penalty box constantly like Erling Haaland, like I've just touched on. The wide players score much more goals for Arsenal than you see at Man City. But when he is in the box, he'll bring that level-headedness and composure to Arsenal's exuberance, something probably we lacked currently. And also Havertz will try and dominate the duels when he is in the box. At the same time, though, this is when that balance between innovation and following trends come in. Arteta, interestingly, may try to follow Guardiola's own usage of Haaland at times as a target man, and how this allows Pep to play over an aggressive opposition press instead of playing on the floor out from the back, but going over the top. And then the knockdowns, you have those speedy runners that you have at Man City to pick up the second balls, like of course you do at Arsenal as well. We've already noted how a physical presence may provide a better balance to the Raumdeuter. Well, Havertz may actually become both. He may become the Raumdeuter, but also in other points, this physical presence for Arteta and Arsenal to play off. As well as that, Pep Guardiola, of course, doesn't use a Raumdeuter at Man City and has wingers that are more ball retention focused. Arteta has a mixture of these wingers who can retain the ball, but love to run off the shoulders, in behind, and it's these subtle differences that make Arsenal, that made them so good last season. For example, these tweaks like Arteta naming 4 centre-backs in a starting 11 for the first time against Liverpool in 2020, or Pep deciding to invert John Stones into midfield. So overall, to associate a specific position to Havertz at Arsenal next season is to totally misprofile him. And I think you may well see his output explode next season without even noticing it yourself before it's mentioned to you. Able to play exclusively in areas of space between the lines, attack the box from deep, making late runs, well timed. Kai Havertz really can excel at Arsenal. But I am conscious that to you watching, you might be wondering, oh, well, if the Raumdeuter is a project topper, like you say, they seem a bit of a luxury in this side. But this is anything but the case. Of course, they are a project topper, but this is because they help elevate a side defensively as well. And Havertz has this potential. He works very, very hard, presses with surprising aggression. And even if he lacks the physical intensity in his ball carries or runs currently, he helps out tremendously in either transition, and is another tall profile now defensively to win aerial duels. He certainly will not be carried defensively, otherwise Arteta would not have signed him for so much money. And going back to the idea of the number 8, when I say Havertz will drift and continue to float around, that means he will play in the number 8 sometimes. But that doesn't mean that is his position, if that makes sense. He will space invade the number 8 role. He will investigate like a typical Raumdeuter. He will also play in the 10, the 9, the shadow striker, or out wide, wherever he sees a pocket of space that he feels he can take advantage of and benefit the team. And this is what makes the Kai Havertz signing and is what made me so excited by it. So intriguing is his ineffability. We do not know exactly how Arteta has his team dynamics in mind next season. And I mean, he could completely evolve his tactical approach next season in a totally new way. We could begin playing with 2 strikers, for example, or 2 advanced 10s, and just a single pivot and a 3-1 axis at the back, especially if we have complete control over games. I mean, there are so many possibilities outside our current use of the 3-2-5 in possession. And with Havertz, he's certainly not an out-and-out midfielder. We still need a replacement in the number 8 for Granit Xhaka if that's not the position Arteta sees Declan Rice playing in. We still do need that all-phase left-hand sided number 8. Because we build initially in a 4-3-3 from the back before progressing into a 3-2-5, the number 8 is required to drop deeper and help the 6 in the pivot before the fullback inverts, to help build the ball up before promoting higher up the pitch, and also be very positionally disciplined and win duels. And that's the exact opposite of what a Raumdeuter is. So Havertz is not going to be a solution for the left-hand sided Arsenal number 8, but he will play there at times. That's the key takeaway that I want you to take away from this video. He's a Raumdeuter, a space invader. I think at times he may even fill in for Ødegaard in that advanced 10 role on the right-hand side in that half space, and this may help facilitate Ødegaard to move across to this left-hand sided 8 role, or help Jesus move wider or even drop deeper into that right-hand sided advanced 8-10 role to help combine with Saka. So again, there's so many dynamics that could potentially evolve next season that we just don't know yet. So, Kai Havertz is a Raumdeuter, and helping him flourish in this role is a large part of what he does in the Arsenal shirt next season. Like I said in my earlier Havertz video, Timber and Rice were the priorities, midfield cover was the priorities, and now they are both all but done. So Havertz has the potential now to be another great market masterstroke from Mikel Arteta, a great bit of business, as almost all Arteta-led signings have been so far. So that's my thoughts on Kai Havertz to Arsenal. More niche this video in terms of in-depth into the role of the Raumdeuter and Kai Havertz as a Raumdeuter himself and where that means he fits in to Arteta's Arsenal next season. If you enjoyed the video and learned something, it'd be great if you could subscribe. I leave this to the end of the video because hopefully if you've made it to the end of the video, you do enjoy what you've seen and you want to see more. So subscribe if you have enjoyed, leave a like, comment down below. I want to make this channel a real forum for discussion and debate. And I am very active in the comments, so I would like to discuss with you and continue growing the channel. But that's all from me. I really hope you've loved the video. I'll catch you in the next one.